prioritizes occupant safety versus pedestrian safety, and what thought process goes into like deciding how to bake this into the AI?
Well, I mean, the thing to appreciate is that from the computer standpoint, everything is moving slowly. So, to a human, things are moving fast. To the computer, they are not moving fast. So I think this is, in reality, somewhat of a false dichotomy. Not that it will never happen, but it will be very rare. If you think it was like, going the other direction, like rendering, with full ray tracing, neural net enhanced graphics on something like Cyberpunk or any advanced video game, doing 60 frames a second, perfectly rendered. Like, how long would it take a person to even render one frame, and without any mistakes? Can't be done. I mean, it would take like a month just to render one frame out of 60 in a second in a video game. It's computers are fast and humans are slow. I mean, for example, on the rocket side, you cannot steer the rocket to orbit. We actually hooked up a joystick to see if anyone could steer the rocket to orbit, but you need to react at roughly 6-7 hertz. People can't do it. Not even now that's pretty low. We're talking more like aiming for like 30 hertz type of thing.
Hi, with hardware 3, there's been lots of speculation that with larger nets, it's hitting the limits of what it can provide. How much headroom has the extended compute modes provided, and at what point would hardware 4 be required, if at all?
Well, I'm confident that hardware 3 or the full self-driving computer 1 will be able to achieve full self-driving at a safety level much greater than a human, probably, I don't know, at least 200 or 300% better than a human. Then obviously there will be a future hardware 4 or full self-driving computer 2, which we'll probably introduce with the Cybertruck, so maybe in about a year or so. That is probably, well, they'll be about 4 times more capable, roughly. But it's really just going to be like, can we take it from, say, for argument's sake, 300% safer than a person to 1,000% safer? Just like there are people on the road who, with varying driving abilities, but we still let people drive. You don't have to be the world's best driver to be on the road. So, as we see. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. All right.
So are you worried at all, since you don't have any depth sensors on the car, that people might try like adversarial attacks, like printed out photos or something to try to trick the RGB neural network?
Yeah, like what? Pull some like Wile E. Coyote stuff, like paint the tunnel on the wall. It's like, oops. We haven't really seen much of that. I mean, for sure, like right now, if you, most likely, if you had like a t-shirt with a t-shirt with like a stop sign on it, which I actually have a t-shirt with a stop sign on it, and then you like flash the car, it will stop. I proved that. But we can obviously, as we see these adversarial attacks, then we can train the cars to, notice that, well, it's actually a person wearing a t-shirt with a stop sign on it, so it's probably not a real stop sign. Yeah.
Hi, my question is about the prediction and the planning. I'm curious, how do you incorporate uncertainty in your planning algorithms? Do you just basically assume, you mentioned that you run the autopilot for all of the other cars on the road. Do you assume that they're all going to follow those rules, or are you accounting for the possibility that, well, they might be bad drivers, for example?
Yeah, we do account for multimodal futures. It's not that we just choose one. We account for, okay, this person can actually do many things, and we use their actual physics and kinematics to make sure that they're not doing a thing that would interfere with us before we act. So if there's any uncertainty, we are conservative and then would yield to them. Of course, there's a limit to this, because if you're too conservative, then it's probably not practical. So at some point we have to assert, and even then we make sure that the other person can yield to us and act sensibly.
I should say, before we introduce something into the fleet, we will run it in shadow mode, and we'll see what would this neural net, for example, have done in this particular situation. And then effectively the drivers are training the net. So if the neural net would have controlled and say veered right, but the person actually went left, it's like, oh, there was a difference. Why was there that difference?
Yeah, and secondly, we also
all the human drivers are essentially training the neural net as to what is the right course of action, assuming it doesn't then end up in a crash. It doesn't count in that case.
Yeah, and secondly, we have various estimates of uncertainty like flicker, and when we observe this, we actually say if you're not able to see something, we actually slow down the car to be, again, safe and get more information before acting. Yeah, we don't want to be brazen and just go into something that we don't know about. We only go into places where we know about.
Yeah, yeah. So it should be like aspirationally, the car should be the less it knows, the slower it goes.
Yeah,
that's just it.
Not true at some point, but now.
Should be speed proportionate to confidence.
Thanks for the presentation. So I am curious, appreciate the fact that the FSD is improving, but if you have the ability to improve one component along the AI stack that presented today, whether it is simulation, data collections, planning and control, etc., which one, in your opinion, is going to have the biggest impact for the performance of the full self-driving system?
It's really the area under the curve of just like multiple points, and if you improve anything, you should improve the area.
I mean, the short term, it's arguably we need all of it to be surround video, and so we still have some legacy. This is very short term. Obviously, we're fixing it fast, but there's still some nets that are not using surround video, and I think ideally that all use surround video. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I think a lot of puzzle pieces out there for success. We just need more strong people to also just help us make it work.
Yeah, that is the actual bottleneck.
So that is the actual bottleneck, I would say, and really one of the reasons that we are putting on this event.
Exactly. Well said, Andre. That there's just a tremendous amount of work to do to make it work. So that's why we need talented people to join and solve the problem.
Thank you for the great presentation. Lots of my questions are answered. But one thing is, when imagine that now you have a large amount of data, even unnecessary. How do you consider that there's a forgetting problem in neural networks? Like how are you considering those aspects? And also another one, are you considering an online learning or continuous learning, so that maybe each driver can have their version of self-driving software?
I think I know the literature that you're referring to. That's not some of the problems that we've seen, and we haven't done too much continuous learning. We trained the system once, we fine-tuned a few times. That sort of goes into the car. We need something stable that we can evaluate extensively, and then we think that that's good, and that goes into cars. So we don't do too much learning on spot or continuous learning, and don't face the forgetting problem.
But there will be settings that you can say, like, if you are you typically a conservative driver, or do you want to drive faster? Like, I'm late I'm late for the airport. Could you go faster than, basically the kind of instructions you'd give to your Uber driver. It's like, I'm late for the flight, please hurry, or take it easy, or whatever your style is. So let's take a few more questions here, and then we'll call it a day.
All right. So as our models have become more and more capable, and I guess you're deploying these models into the real world, one thing I guess that's possible is for AI to become more, I guess, misaligned with what humans desire. So I guess, is this something that you guys are worried about as you guys deploy more and more robots, or do you guys we'll solve that problem when we get there?
Yeah, I think that we should be worried about AI. Now, what we're trying to do here is, I'd say, a narrow AI, pretty narrow, just make the car drive better than a human, and then have the humanoid robot be able to do basic stuff. So at the point at which you sort of start to get superhuman intelligence, I don't know, all bets are off. But and that's that'll probably happen. But what we're trying to do here at Tesla is make useful AI that people love and is unequivocally good. That's our try to aim for that. Okay, maybe one more question.
Hi, my question is about the camera sensor. In the beginning of the talk, you had mentioned about building a synthetic animal. And if you think about it, a camera is a very poor approximation of a human eye. And a human eye does a lot more than take a sequence of frames. Have you looked into, there are these days are cameras like event cameras. Have you looked into them? Or are you looking into a more flexible camera design or building your own camera, for example?
Well, with hardware forward, we will have a next generation camera, but I have to say that the current cameras, we have not reached the limit of the current cameras. And I'm confident we can achieve full self-driving with much higher safety than humans with the current cameras and current compute hardware. But it would be good to be 1,000% better rather than 300% better. We'll see continued evolution on all levels in pursuit of that goal. And I think in the future, people will look back and say, "Wow, I can't believe we had to drive these cars ourselves." It'll self-driving cars will just be just a normal, self-driving elevators. Elevators used to have elevator operators, and there's someone there with big relay switch operating the elevator, and then every now and then they'd get tired or make a mistake and shear somebody in half. So now we made the elevators automatic, and you just go and you press the button, and you can be in a 100-story skyscraper and don't really worry about it. Just go and press the button, and the elevator takes you where you want to go. But it used to be that all elevators were operated manually. It'll be the same thing for cars. All cars will be automatic, and then and electric, obviously. So there will still be some gasoline cars and some manual cars, just like there are still some horses. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and hope you enjoyed the presentation, and thank you for the great questions. All right.
you.